Alright, everybody, this is a little different than what I normally do video games, but this is a very interesting video, and I want this end to just be in, and you guys can maybe creep into watching the whole video yourself. It's a little over 2 hours.
We've discussed a lot. I think putting it all together is, again, the links. And if we have those links, medications have their place, but the way that they work is by breaking down other parts of the chain to strengthen the weak chain. That can have an effect, especially at the end of life, if you want to sustain life. But if you're interested in longevity, if you're interested in making and living the best life, then you want to strengthen all of those chains. And I believe the key to doing that is something called New Start.
We have a closing tradition on this podcast where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who they're leaving it for. And the question that was left for you is, what is the area of your focus that you are most dying to talk about, which you are almost never asked about?
This book, the Bible, which is my tradition. Evidence for science in the Bible.
What do you mean?
What we've been talking about is
Attention, because this is not just about the Bible.
And the health in the
It's
body.
the body and health.
I'd like to put to the test some of the statements in the Bible to see if they work scientifically.
Like turning water into wine?
No, well, potentially. That's a miracle. What I was referring to is this, and this is what I've actually done, and it's actually quite interesting, is, Paul, who is one of the New Testament writers in the Bible, wrote to the Corinthians, don't you understand that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit? I said, that's a really interesting statement. How would he come to that conclusion? Like, what does that mean, the temple of the Holy Spirit? So the only temple at that time was the temple in Jerusalem where they would have the sacrifices and things. So what I did was I went back, and this is answering the question, is I'm looking for evidence of scientific truth, probably unknowingly, by some of the writers in the Bible to see whether or not there is truth. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So if you look, and most of Exodus 25 through 30 is this painstakingly detailed description of the sanctuary that Moses built in the wilderness that he supposedly got from God. This is what he says. So here's a great way to see whether or not this all fleshes out. Moses is saying, here's the description of the pattern that I got for the temple. And Paul is saying, your body is a temple. So here's my hypothesis. If we look at the pattern in the temple, should it match the human body that they had no understanding of at the time that Paul wrote this? We didn't know about cells until Van Leeuwenhoek in the 1600s. We didn't know about the circulation of the heart until the 1600s with William Harvey. Okay. Yet, if you look in the human body, you have the blood system. You have blood circulating around in the vascular system, and then it goes into the interstitial fluid, and then the interstitial fluid then goes to the cell, which there's a plasma membrane on the cell that you can't penetrate through, but unless you actually have the proteins to go, and then it goes into the cell, which is a compartment with two compartments within it. Right? You got the cell and the nucleus. Right? This is exactly the same structure that Moses was given in the wilderness. And by the way, Hindu temples are actually similarly designed. There's sort of this three-part situation. So you have this altar of sacrifice, which is where the blood is. That's the blood in the human body. Next, you move to the laver, which is this container full of water. And that's the interstitial space, after you go from the blood into the interstitial space. Any pharmacologist will know that this is exactly the pattern that you move to. The next thing that comes is this structure that has a veil that you can't penetrate through unless you go through it. That's the cell, because this structure is the building, and it's got a room within a room. And that's exactly what the cell is. The cell is this nucleus surrounded by the cytoplasm. Well, in this room that you go into at first, there's pieces of furniture in there that are very similar to the types of organelles that you see in the cytoplasm of the cell. For instance, there's this 7-branch candlestick that's in there that's burning olive oil and producing energy. That's like beta oxidation producing energy. That's exactly what you see in the mitochondria. But the final thing is you move into the nucleus. And this temple has something called the most holy place, where there's this altar of, where there's this Ark of the Covenant. You've seen Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
And the first Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's this Ark, and you open it up, and this is where the 2 tablets of stone, the 10 Commandments, rested. So in that area, you have 2 tablets of stone written by the hand of God, the code of life, and according to Jewish and Christian belief that this is the law, and if you break the law, that's how sin is, and the consequences of sin is disease and death. Well, when we get to the nucleus of the human body, you have 2 strands of DNA, and on the strands of DNA is the code, the nucleotides, of which is the code of life. If you manipulate that code, that leads to mutations, which leads to disease and death. None of this was known until 1950 when they discovered DNA. And yet, we have Paul who's making this jump and saying, your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. I just find that fascinating. Nobody ever asked me about that. But that's what, as soon.
This is a very short video and that I'm putting together. I wanted to get this out. If you haven't watched this video, vitamin D experiment, the fastest way to dementia, the big lie about sunlight. You can look this up on any platform. I'm going to post this up. This is a very important information if you want to know about health. It is not all about religion. It is about how we don't stay outside enough as a society. We don't get in the sun. We don't breathe natural air. We eat unhealthy foods. It's a huge, huge thing. I will be posting this up on my page. I encourage you, highly encourage you to look this up and watch the whole thing. It is not about religion. I'll be on video gaming later today, or hear it a little bit and later today. You guys know, always, thank you for watching.